Good afternoon. We know that gun violence is spiking. It's spiking across the country, and it's spiking here in Los Angeles, especially here in South Los Angeles. Now, there are many reasons for this that we can discuss today, but there is a major contributing factor, and that's the increasing prevalence of ghost guns. Those are firearms, and we have some examples that are here today that we can walk you through a little bit. These are firearms that started as an unfinished lower receiver or a frame. They're purchased in kits or separately with other key parts. They're assembled at home by the purchaser into a functioning gun, and they have no serial number, so they can't be traced. And because they're assembled at home, there's no background check associated with them. And buyers, as you might imagine, will pay a premium to get their hands on ghost guns for those two reasons. They're untraceable, and there's no background check. And here's what one judge said about them. There would appear to be no compelling reason why a law-abiding citizen would prefer an unmarked firearm. These weapons would then have value primarily for persons seeking to use them for illicit purposes. Now, ghost guns have been used here in our region in a number of high-profile incidents. In Saugus, a 16-year-old with a gun without a serial number shot 5 classmates in 2019. In Compton, just a few months ago, a convicted felon ambushed 2 sheriff's deputies in their vehicle and shot them in the head and face. In Glendale, 2 ghost guns were recovered at a November 2020 gang murder, and the perpetrator of a 2019 home invasion murder in Glendale also used a ghost gun. And I want to now connect those incidents to why we're here today. The Compton and Glendale incidents share a key fact in common. The ghost guns in those incidents were all derived from components that were sold by a company called Polymer 80. Just last year, LAPD has recovered in criminal investigations more than 700 ghost guns containing component parts derived from Polymer 80. 300 of those weapons were recovered in South Los Angeles, where, as I emphasized, we're seeing the spike in gun violence here in LA. So today, I'm announcing that we're filing a lawsuit. We're filing a lawsuit against Polymer 80. We're seeking an injunction to stop the flow of ghost guns derived from Polymer 80 parts. We're seeking penalties associated with the violations that we allege, and we're seeking an abatement fund to help the city grapple with the impact of gun violence that we allege is tied in part to Polymer 80's acts. A little background on Polymer 80. It's a Nevada company. It operates a website. It sells kits and parts used to assemble ghost guns. We allege it violates federal and state law in doing so. Our basic claims focus on these points. Polymer 80's business model makes a mockery of federal and state background check laws. As I noted, its customers can buy kits without a background check. In fact, we allege that a customer is simply asked on its website, or has been asked on its website, to simply self-certify that they're not a felon. And again, because these parts are not traceable, think of the impact of these practices on law enforcement's capacity to prevent and prosecute crimes involving gun violence. We also allege that the company engages in false advertising, misleadingly suggesting to its customers that its business model is effectively lawful. Let me focus on some key facts to give you a sense of the magnitude of the ghost gun issue nationally and here. It's a rapidly growing problem. A third of the guns recovered nationally don't have serial numbers anymore. In Los Angeles, in our area, it's 40%. Just year over year, this year to last year, or 2020 and 2019, the Sheriff's Department saw an increase of 50% in the number of weapons that were ghost guns that it recovered. And now let's talk federally. The Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. It recovered 10,000, it notes that 10,000 ghost guns were recovered nationally in 2019. 10,000 recovered in 2019, 2,700 of those recovered here in California. According to ATF, pistols derived from polymer 80s components have been used in hundreds of crimes in the United States. And alarmingly, polymer 80s products have been recovered at crime scenes. 86% of the ghost guns seized and entered into ATF's national database derived from polymer 80. And that includes, by the way, there are sales in California, according to ATF, to addresses where convicted felons live. In fact, ATF was so focused on this issue that it executed a search warrant at Polymer 80's headquarters a few months ago. Let me also focus on a few key provisions of law to give you a sense what's at stake. The Federal Gun Control Act defines a firearm to include a frame or a receiver that's designed to be or can be readily converted into an operable weapon. The law also says that sellers can't ship firearms directly to buyers, that background checks have to be conducted, that serial numbers have to be etched into the weapons, and that child safety locks have to be sold. California law comes into play too, because there are many California safety standards associated with guns that are prescribed by law, and California requires that when you sell a plastic weapon that at least some component has steel in it so you can serialize the gun. So in this case, to sort of summarize, here's what we allege. We allege that Polymer 80 has violated federal law when it sold firearms in the form of ghost gun kits without serial numbers, without background checks, directly to purchasers, and without child safety locks. We allege it violated California law by aiding and abetting the manufacturer of guns that don't comply with California safety standards and don't include that steel I mentioned earlier so the guns can be serialized. We allege that Polymer 80 violates the unfair competition law in California by implying falsely that its business practice when it sells these kits is consistent with existing law. And here's a bottom line. Untraceable ghost guns are now the emerging weapon of choice for criminals across the nation and here in Los Angeles. Nobody who could buy a serialized gun and who could pass a background check has any need for a ghost gun. Yet we allege that Polymer 80 has made it easy for anyone, including a felon, to easily obtain these components that can be made into weapons that are posing a major public safety threat and have had that impact already. And so that's why we're fighting. We're fighting to protect our residents here in the city. We're fighting to protect residents throughout the state of California. We're fighting to prevent gun crime, and we're fighting to help in some way to intercede in this escalating gun violence that is having a particular impact on neighborhoods in South Los Angeles. I want to thank key members of our team. Kate Keneally and Michael Bostrom and Amanda Wong of our staff have been absolutely marvelous as we've been developing this case. We're collaborating with the law firm of Quinn Emanuel, Urquhart, and Sullivan. Quinn Emanuel is working on a pro bono basis, and we're collaborating with Everytown Law, the litigation arm of Everytown for Gun Safety's support fund. This team, taken together, has done remarkable work to get us to this stage. And now, in addition to thanking, of course, our colleagues at LA City View, Channel 35, always do a great job of getting the word out to folks, I want to now introduce two essential partners in this effort. I'd like to turn to our police chief, Mike Moore, who has been a leader in calling out the need to grapple with the issue of ghost guns, and of course is in charge of making sure our residents are safe. Chief Moore.
Good afternoon. So first, my thanks to City Attorney Mike Feuer, Councilman Paul Krekorian for their continued leadership on gun safety and their efforts to combat gun violence. After years of crime reductions in Los Angeles, we're suddenly witnessing this surge in gun violence. While many are asking what are the underlying influencers or factors, I'm confident that undoubtedly a significant influence is too many guns in too many hands. Ghost guns, a phenomenon not seen in many other cities, nowhere near the degree that we see here in Los Angeles, is a significant influencer that allows otherwise prohibited possessors to have access, ready access, to firearms. As we look across the landscape, these are the weapons that our officers are coming against. These are the weapons that are being used on other Angelenos. And they're being used by individuals who have no right or ability to otherwise have lawful possession of a firearm. The other phenomenon we see here is that in addition to using pick-apart, if you will, order a gun by mail, is we have the ability to see these crafts that are built in garages, machine shops, that are well beyond other regulations within the state of California regarding guns, such as magazine capacity. Also, the ability to make a fully automatic handgun or rifle. Last year, we saw a marked increase, dramatic increase. Highest level of homicides in Los Angeles in more than a decade. A significant increase in the number of shooting victims, nearly 400 additional shooting victims. And our officers are responding to that, trying to protect those victims from further violence and bring to justice those responsible. Gun arrests are up 35% last year. And we see that as they capture those guns, that in South Los Angeles, 4 out of 10 of those guns are a ghost gun. And so moving forward, again, I want to thank City Attorney Feuer for his leadership, his innovation, and going and pursuing civil action against these manufacturers. And I'll close by saying public safety is a shared responsibility. And a manufacturer of a weapon of destruction cannot distance themselves via a website and should not be able to escape prosecution for marketing essentially death in our streets by selling guns to people who otherwise should not have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, for that stellar cleanup job. That was really good. So I now have the pleasure of introducing a longtime colleague, both here in the city and we're in Sacramento, Paul Krekorian, who's a council member who leads the Budget and Finance Committee, and in this instance, led the effort to assure that we had the resources we needed by getting through the council the motion that enables the teamwork between Quinn Emanuel and Everytown on the one hand and our office on the other. But Paul's much more than a facilitator of this one lawsuit. He has been one of the key leaders, not just in Los Angeles, but in the state and maybe beyond, on gun violence prevention for years. And his leadership, his vision, and his collaboration on these and so many other issues makes it a real privilege, Paul, to be able to call you to the podium next. Paul Krekorian.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Mike, and thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for your leadership, especially, not only on this case, but for the many decades that we've worked together on gun violence issues. The City of Los Angeles has been a national leader on common sense steps to take to reduce gun violence. And many of the steps that have been initiated here in Los Angeles have spread to the state of California, and from California they've spread across the nation. So for many decades, the struggle against gun violence has started right here. And the common sense steps that we've taken have really fallen into at least 3 categories. One, eliminating particularly unsafe guns. 2, keeping all guns out of the hands of people who should not have them, known as prohibited persons. And then 3, giving law enforcement the tools that it needs to be able to prosecute gun crimes when they occur. And ghost guns have circumvented all 3 of those critically important policy objectives. They make particularly unsafe guns available when these merchants of death misuse the internet to be able to sell guns and gun parts that allow the possession of guns and magazines that would not otherwise be legally available. by making sure that they are not stamped with registration numbers, the weapons become untraceable. So law enforcement is left without the resources that it needs to be able to enforce these crimes. And then, perhaps most dangerously of all, because these sales are made through the internet, without a background check, without the first effort to be able to ensure that these guns are not being provided to prohibited persons, the very business model of these companies is based on enriching themselves by selling guns to people that they know should not have them. And that endangers the entire public. That endangers the city of Los Angeles. It makes the long struggle against gun violence much more difficult for us here in Los Angeles. I have to say, since Chief Moore is here, we have seen over the last decade or longer a steady decline in gun violence, a huge reduction in the number of homicides over the last 15 years. And it's been a remarkable story of success that isn't told often enough. And I want to thank Chief Moore and all the men and women of the Los Angeles Police Department for the work that they've done to achieve those remarkable results. But now we're seeing violence increase, and we're seeing gun violence increase again in particular. And the scourge of ghost guns and the misconduct of those who would enrich themselves by pumping these ghost guns out into the marketplace is making the job of the Los Angeles Police Department not only more difficult, but more dangerous as well. And so I want to really applaud the city attorney for taking this innovative approach, a really visionary approach to stopping this problem at its source by going after the merchants of death who are bringing these abominations onto our streets. So, Mr. Feuer, thank you very much.
Paul, thank you very much, and thank you again for your leadership. I'm going to say a few words in Spanish and then take whatever questions will be transmitted to Rob, who will then convey them to us. La violencia con armas de fuego ha incrementado dramáticamente en Los Ángeles y otras ciudades del país. Cada vez más, las armas fantasma sin números de serie, por lo que no pueden ser rastreadas, y sin verificaciones de antecedentes penales, pueden ser compradas por delincuentes, se están utilizando para cometer crímenes. Hoy anuncio que estamos demandando a Palomir 80. Alegamos que es un líder en ventas de las piezas que componen las armas fantasma en California. Para mostrarles lo que importante que es esta demanda aquí en Los Ángeles, solo este año pasado, el Departamento de Policía de Los Ángeles recuperó más de 700 armas fantasma que contienen piezas de Palomir 80. Alegamos que la compañía ha violado las leyes federales y que requirieron verificaciones de antecedentes y números de serie y leyes de California. Estamos buscando una orden judicial para detener el flujo de componentes de armas fantasma imposibles de rastrear de Palomir 80. También buscamos penalizarles por sus presuntas violaciones y la vez establecer fondos para combatir el impacto de las supuestas violaciones de Palomir 80. Okay, Rob, are there questions?
Yes. For you, City Attorney, this is from Margaret Shuttleworth of City News Service. Is this lawsuit in collaboration with Everytown Law and Quinn Emanuel and Sullivan's pro bono services following the City Council yesterday authorizing the City Attorney's Office to execute contracts with them?
Yes.
Okay. And from Phil Dreschler at NBC4, is this the first time a ghost gun manufacturer has been charged under provisions of this code statewide and nationally? And how do you think this action will reduce the number of ghost guns in Los Angeles?
So first, I don't know of any other unfair competition case that's been brought against a manufacturer of ghost gun component parts. That's a civil lawsuit, as we've discussed today. And I don't know if any other state laws across the nation have been invoked for a similar lawsuit. This is the first one of which I'm aware. As for the impact of this on the prevalence of ghost guns here in Los Angeles, if we can stem the tide of component parts from this leading manufacturer of those parts of ghost guns, we can make a big impact. I mentioned earlier the statistic that is really startling, that LAPD last year recovered 700 ghost guns containing components, the source of which was polymer 80, in criminal investigations. If we can start to stem the tide of the flow of those weapons here from this company, two things are going to happen. I think, first of all, there'll be a dramatic decrease for the future in the prevalence of these guns from this company. But second, it sends a strong message to any other manufacturer that would seek to engage in similar practices, because it would show that we have a model, a civil litigation model, that's working. And I can't emphasize enough what the three of us have all said, and that is, we got to be very clear. The gun violence that is escalating here in Los Angeles is escalating particularly in the very neighborhoods of our city that are the most underserved when it comes to education and jobs and healthcare and recreation and access to decent food, all those things. And we owe it to every community that is being targeted for this violence to stand up for them. And to pursue civil litigation to complement the very important work of LAPD is one way we can do that.
Okay, another question from Phil. How does this dovetail with the law by the Attorney General that requires serial numbers on ghost guns?
So I think, Phil, what you're referring to is this. There are two lawsuits pending in different federal courts in the United States now that are targeting the ATF. And the AG has one in California. There's also one pending in New York. Our office and a group that I'm co-chair of, Prosecutors Against Gun Violence, are actually part of an amicus team, a friend of the court team, in the New York case. The cases all revolve around one basic thing, that ATF has heretofore not classified the actual receiver, the unfinished receiver or the frame, as a firearm. And the allegations in those cases are that it should. So I will say those cases are really important. And if the outcome of those cases is a change in the federal interpretation as it applies to those unfinished receivers and frames, that will give us an additional weapon to use in our civil litigation. But I want to say clearly something else, and that is that ATF, in an affidavit associated, I believe, with the search warrant against this company in Nevada, its counsel has already said that the kits that are at stake in part of our lawsuit are, in fact, firearms. So I think we're making progress with ATF. The litigation is going to continue to be helpful. We've been partners with ATF for years. I'm looking forward to that partnership, putting I think, a very important crimp in the distribution of ghost guns nationally.
Final question from Phil. What are the potential penalties?
So in our case, we filed an unfair competition lawsuit. We also have a component of our lawsuit that's for what's called nuisance. Let's take each of those in turn. In the unfair competition piece of this, we are allowed to seek penalties on a daily basis for violations of law. The penalty is up to $2,500 per day. We will see what a court decides to impose were we to be successful in our case now with our allegations. We've also, as I mentioned, brought a component that's called a nuisance component here. And that is to focus on the impact here in Los Angeles of the alleged violations by this company. And that result could be the creation of a fund, that's what we're seeking, to help mitigate the effects of these alleged violations here. So two different kinds of remedies. The former, the penalties, are sought statewide because our office has the power under California law to assert this claim not just here in Los Angeles, but across the state. The nuisance claim specific to Los Angeles.
All right, this question is from Steve Gregory, iHeartMedia and KFI 640 Los Angeles. How were you made aware of the Ghost Gun Company, and how many similar companies do you think are operating in a similar fashion?
Well, I'm not going to discuss our strategies in identifying this particular defendant. I will note, as I've indicated, that ATF did execute a search warrant at its headquarters. Nationally, I don't know how many companies are engaged in this practice, but again, we focused on the alleged violations by Polymer 80 because it is such a significant player in this market, because alcohol, tobacco, and firearms has identified it. Given the statistics that I cited earlier, you can see how important this company has been nationally. And again, locally, because LAPD, which has begun to chronicle the receipt of ghost guns that it gets in criminal investigations, has shown how many of these derive from Polymer 80.
All right, we have some questions for Chief Moore.
Great.
First from Richard.
Why don't you wait, Chief, for 1 second?
Yeah, well, hold on 1 second, Chief. And this one is from Richard Winton of the Los Angeles Times. What is the number of ghost guns seized in LA 2020 and then separately 2021?
So, Richard, as was stated earlier by City Attorney Feuer, over 700 guns were ghost guns made up of parts from Polymer 80. We are currently inventorying the thousands of guns that we have that were unmarked, and to try to determine who the underlying manufacturer is and identify them as a ghost gun. This is well, I won't say a phenomenon that just occurred in 2020. It is a phenomenon that took off exponentially during that year. So our systems and controls, the counts, if you will, are currently being stiffened and improved so that we can capture all the way down to every single gun, which ones are non-serialized, that constitute the definition of a ghost gun, and which ones are in fact serialized. But right now, what I do know is that is 77th, for instance, as a area of the city that had the highest number of homicides citywide last year. It also had the highest number of ghost guns that were recovered, over 300, made by this company. That's, in our view, contributing significantly to the ready availability of handguns and rifles in the hands of individuals who are preying upon others.
And another question from Richard Winton. Have ghost guns been connected to homicides? If so, what number?
So last year in 2020 to this point, our hand tally is over 17 murders and attempt murders.
Is there evidence of ghost guns now being the favored weapons in gang-related murders and other gang crimes? If so, what evidence?
It's subjective in the sense of the gang officers and those that are engaged with gang interventionists that deal with people who are involved in the street life of gang violence, their own statements. People are bragging, again, flouting the fact that they can readily acquire these weapons. And recognize it's not every gang member who's ordering online. There are individuals, the supply chain, that are ordering from this manufacturer and others, assembling these parts in garages and machine shops, and then selling them as via retail, if you will, in the street to individuals. We have ongoing criminal investigations and undercover capacity, as well as other strategies to identify City Attorney Feurer's efforts to deal with the supplier. We're looking at the mid-market, just like a narcotic chain. We're looking at the mid-market, secondary receivers, and ultimately the people who are touting these across the city.
Again, from Richard Winton, are the ghost guns that have been recovered in LA made using 3D printing locally, or are they assembled from parts acquired over the internet?
While the 3D printing capabilities has been well chronoed and oftentimes, if you will, glorified in our media, our officers' experience is that they represent a very small part. 3D printing of firearms, the firearm is not very stable. It's a one-and-done type of issue. The material is so perishable that, for the most part, people people who use a 3D gun are as much in danger using it as they are as anyone they're pointing it at. And so the street practice is to order gun parts There are, again, middlemen, there are wholesalers, individuals that are making and capitalizing on this death and destruction by selling these guns to individuals that would otherwise be unable to purchase a firearm.
And a final question from Richard Winton. Chief, have Polymer 80 kits, built kits, played a role in any LA homicides or attempted murders? And are there felons the LAPD or city attorney is aware of who have acquired kits from this company?
So I answered earlier, in a quick hand tally, we identified 17 murders and attempt murders very quickly over this last year. I believe there's many more than that. And our officers have identified and arrested a number of individuals. Again, I don't have the number. We can follow up with the times on this. But we have arrested a number of individuals who are prohibited possessors, felons, that are in possession of ghost guns at the time of their arrest.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. City Attorney, we have no further questions. And then for concluding remarks?
Yes. Thank you, Rob. Want to just make one quick point and then sum up. The quick point is that notwithstanding how startling the numbers are that we've recited today, and how clearly this is a problem that's escalating, you should know, because a ghost gun isn't serialized, someone who commits a crime with it has much less incentive to get rid of it and get a new gun. So there are probably many more ghost guns in our community right now than are even accounted for by the important work of LAPD and the statistics that ATF has provided. As I conclude here, let me just say, the issue of ghost guns has been emerging throughout the nation. It's clearly a key issue here. There are so many strategies that all of us need to be focused on to try to suppress the gun crime that is escalating. The pandemic makes many of those strategies harder to execute. The conditions in every major city in the country have been ripe for an increase in gun violence. We need to be addressing each of the reasons for that gun violence to increase, and we need to be putting in place each of the strategies that we know works, especially as the pandemic lifts, to try to suppress it. This lawsuit is an ingredient in that puzzle, and I'm hopeful that it'll yield results and ideally be a catalyst for change by other lawsuits being produced around the country, and also a further catalyst to ATF, whose important work could do a great deal to further suppress the prevalence of ghost guns. Thanks very much.
So just to give you a brief rundown of what we have here, we have assault rifles. We have primarily here, what you see here is assault weapons with laser focuses, far-off sniper-type weapons, extended magazines, handguns that in and of themselves so let's just put this. This is a handgun. This is a extended magazine. These handguns, by buying a ghost gun, can be turned into fully automatic. 30-round clip. 30-round clip can expend 30 individual shots in about 2.5 seconds. Entirely lethal. Entirely one of the most dangerous guns. This magazine, of course, is outlawed in the state of California, and a weapon that's fully automatic is outlawed in the state of California. Yet these manufacturers, for simple greed, as the city attorney said, has found a way to capitalize on those restrictions by manufacturing these guns. And unfortunately, we have individuals that are ready to buy and use. Thank you.
Thank you.